everyone, welcome to Correo TV. This is the English edition of Correo Canadiense bilingual newspaper here in Canada. Our guest today is Pier-Philippe Chevigny, director, editor, based in Montreal, Quebec. He is the director of the films like Recrue, Richelieu, and Tala. And today he's going to talk with us a little bit about Rebel. Rebel, like Rebel, Rebelde, here in Spanish, is a 15 film documentary, a short documentary. It's a story that showed the rise of right-wing extremism in Quebec or in another parts in Canada. And we see that that part of our story through the eyes of 8 years old boy. Welcome, Pierre-Philippe. Thanks for being here in our program, Correo TV.
Hello, thanks for having me. It's my pleasure.
Okay, first of all, your story was inspired by true events. What happened and why you want to tell that story?
Right. So, about 5 years ago, Quebec has sort of seen this increase in right-wing extremism, which is something that we never really had before in Quebec. Like, Quebec has always been pretty left-wing or left-leaning, always electing very center or left-wing governments. But for the past 5 years, we started seeing these militia groups, kind of similar to what's happening in the U.S. With the alt-right movement. And a lot of that came as a reaction to the migrant surge that we had in 2017, when in 2017 the U.S. government suspended the TPS, temporary protected status, for migrants that allowed them to live and work in the U.S. while awaiting for their refugee status to be confirmed. So the U.S. suspended that program, and that created a panic within the migrant community in the United States. And all of a sudden, people started fleeing. And about 40,000 people fled the U.S. into Canada and crossed the border in Quebec at Roxham Road. And that has really stirred up the fires of right-wing extremism. And they started becoming like really organized in militia groups, training, survivalist techniques in the wood and patrolling cities and doing demonstrations at the border. And I just did a very broad research on that topic. And I began writing a fiction piece that became Rebel.
Yeah, it's a wonderful piece that we can see to YouTube, I guess, and
Yes.
we will talk about this later. But first of all, you mentioned US, and in fact, we remember on January the 6th, the assault of Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C., and we see the images around the world about how those extremist people just went down there and destroy everything and destroy or try to destroy the democracy in US. And we probably from Canada, we feel like, oh, thanks, we are in Canada, no? But your film Rebel shows that there is a risk here that we can see some kind of images like this here in Canada. What do you think?
Well, that was kind of the intention, to kind of challenge the idea that, Canada is devoid of racism, which is, of course, totally not true. There's racism here, just as there is pretty much everywhere else. But, it's not funny. It's quite unfortunate. But when I wrote Rebel, I wrote it as an anticipation piece. It was like kind of trying to imagine a very near dystopian future where things like that, where like militia groups would, get organized and patrol to arrest trespassing migrants. But then, like now, almost 3 years later, what we're seeing, what's happening right now in the United States, kind of mirrors what I sort of anticipated. So it's kind of frightening, but at the same time, I believe like all the elements were there for us to anticipate that kind of action. And of course, this could happen also here because those ingredients are here as well. So
And tell us about the extremists there in Quebec, in your province, what they do, what they say,
Yeah.
what is your opinion about their
Yeah.
meaning, about the
Yeah.
immigrants?
Yeah, so it's there's like several level of complexity because of the nationalist movement in Quebec, and actually these militia groups, they tend to be like very federalist. They don't support Quebec separatism. So it's very confusing, especially for people in
Hmm.
the rest of Canada. That's not what you'd expect, but they tend to be more federalists, and they're very scared about the immigration, and they feel like the migrant surge is a threat to their livelihood. So that's the main argument. And there's a lot of course, bad reasoning and false claims, and based on basically lies that they keep repeating on social media. And I've really started to follow them mostly on social media. I try to reach out to them to try to have their perspective on it, because at first I didn't know if it was going to be fiction or documentary. And everyone I reached out to turned me down, basically, because I didn't want to pretend that I agreed with them. I was very transparent and open. I said, I do not agree with you, but I'm curious. I'd like to have a dialogue with you so you can tell me your perspective, and I'd be really willing to listen to you. And they all turned me down. So my research was all based on social media. And it's kind of what I think those militia groups are basically the symptoms of social media, because algorithms will create these echo chambers where you constantly just read the opinions that you agree with, basically. And the most violent or explicit opinions are the ones that get the most reaction, so they get put forth in your news feed. So you're constantly exposed to the most radical of the opinions that you agree with. And that really create these bubbles where if you're left wing, you only hear about the most radical ideas, and if you're right wing, it's the same thing. So I think this is what's happening. This is a symptom of us over relying probably on social media, actually.
And do you have their feedback about your film, Rebel?
You mean from right wing
From
militia
their,
groups?
yeah, those kind of groups? What they
They're
say?
Yeah, they're not really happy. But then again, like, short films tend to have somewhat niche audiences. Like, these people who take part in these groups, they're not film buffs, so it wasn't seen that much by these people. So I didn't get that much feedback from them, but the few that I got was mostly negative. So, but I didn't get death threats or anything, but just once in a while you get a comment on the film on YouTube, or just a private message on Facebook and stuff like that. But it's not like, it rarely is a very thoughtful answer. Let me put it that way.
Okay. And Pierre-Philippe, thank you so much for that creation of that film, because it portrayed all related to refugees. What is your opinion about the refugees? And probably is better to say that in one study said 1 in 5 Canadians was born outside Canada. So
Mm-hmm.
Canada is a refugee country.
Of course it is.
And from your point of view, what is the contribution of the refugees? And by the way, we have to mention that minister like Ahmed Hussein, the former Minister of Immigration, now Minister of Families, was a refugee. And
Mm-hmm.
the MP Pablo Rodriguez, Latin American immigrant, was a refugee too.
Mm-hmm.
So we are talking about a high level of immigrants.
Yeah.
No, what is your opinion about that?
Of course, I mean, if you watch the film, I think my position is pretty obvious. Like, I support like welcoming, as opening our borders, and welcoming in as many people as we can. Like, it's not like we're missing space in Quebec or in Canada for that matter. I support the broadening of borders for sure, and of course, like, immigration's contribution, especially in this time with declining demographics, is the right thing to do. So yeah, basically.
Yeah. Now let's talk a little bit. Your little actor is Edward B. LaRocque. He is amazing. He is your main character, and the camera follow him, and the camera is in his angle, in his eyes, to
Hmm.
see that complex his story. And how easy was to work with Edward? I know you worked with him before. How was that experience? How old is he?
He when we auditioned him, he was like he just turned 7, like really really young, and when I wrote the script, I was aiming for 6 years old. But when we were auditioning, we thought like let's get like slightly older kids just so that they're a bit more mature and we can work with them. And so we started seeing a lot of 8 and 9 and 10 years old, but they didn't have like that very innocent naivety that I was aiming for. And we saw a few 6 years old that were really really too young to work. And Edouard he just turned 7, but he was like better than all of the older kids. So um, yeah, he was just like very enthusiastic. That was the main takeaway, because a lot of time when you audition and you work with child actors, you find out that they're kind of pushed by their parents who want them to become actors because that they find that amusing and stuff. But with Edouard, you could tell right away that he wanted to be there. Like he was really happy and he was enjoying himself. And so, since, like you said, the camera's always following him around and it's very long takes, like I don't edit like you'd see in a traditional film, like shot, reverse shot. So you need basically to have an actor that can, support the camera, like being over his shoulder all the time and making these long continuous takes that I can't, edit really his performance because the scene is just one long take. So you have to find someone that's really really good and talented, but also that's willing to work, because you don't get these long shots in a single take. You need to do many many takes. And that's another thing with child actors, is they tend to be tired really really quickly. And so after one or two takes, they just want to go outside and play. But he was like a workaholic, so we knew like we could do it again if it wasn't quite right.
This
So
is a great, great, and amazing actor. And Correo TV was on the press conference with Pierre and him and another part of the crew, and asked him how what was his meaning about the topic of that film. Let's listen what he say.
Oui, c'est vrai, en français. Pour moi, je trouve que j'aime pas ça, mais pourquoi est-ce qu'il y a des personnes qui font ça? Accueillez-les, genre, faites un site, un truc. De même, genre, ils sont peut-être dans un pays de guerre, genre, ils vont retourner là, puis peut-être à mourir à cause de la guerre. Accueillez-les, faites quelque chose.
So he said that he actually doesn't understand at all why this is all happening. He thinks that we should just welcome everybody. He said that we don't know what's happening in their country. Maybe it's war. Maybe if we don't welcome them, they can die over there. So he just seems very angry that we don't open all our doors to those refugees.
So Pierre-Philippe, tell us how difficult it is to work with a little boy about complex stories like your story Rebel.
yeah, so the film has political content, but on deep down, it's really the story about a kid and his father, and a kid witnessing or understanding something about his father that he never witnessed before. And so I guess like we didn't really talk about the political content, because then again the character doesn't really understand what's going on either. That's part of what the role is about. So we took it like really really at face value. I'd say like I would direct him and it would be like very simple, just you go see the cat, or you walk up to your father, stuff like that. We didn't like over explain anything, and he understood like deep down also it's about empathy. And at that age he could understand what empathy means, so we didn't really have to talk about politics at all.
Yeah, it's better for his childhood, no, to keep
Right.
his
Yeah,
childhood.
yeah, it's a, the character is innocent, and that's what we wanted from the character, for him to be like oblivious and kind of innocent. So
Okay, and finally, Pier-Philippe Chevigny, I want to ask you about do you have hope in the new generation? Because you focus in the little boy, and you focus in, I can find in your film like a metaphor about the kids, that the father refused to take the cat inside
Mhm.
because he said, we don't leave the cat inside because we have to take care of him.
Right.
So it's like a refuse of that, and then the kid and the doll and the child. So do you have that hope in the new generations?
Yeah. So of course, like the ending at the very basic level, the cat is supposed to be a metaphor for immigration. But to me, it was also it means that he basically rebels against his father's orders. That's what the ending means to me, because at first the father says you can let the cat come in, and at the end he disobeys, and that's his way of expressing is dissatisfaction, and is his way of expressing rebellion, basically. So yeah, it's meant as a glimmer of hope, that maybe we can't fix all of those issues right now, but I have faith that the next generation and the one that will come after it will be able to tackle those issues. That's if there's a message to the film, that's what I wanted it to be.
Okay, Pierre-Philippe. And our public, if they want to watch your film, is a short film, 15 minutes, Rebel, how can we watch that film?
So if you're in Canada, you can watch it on CBC Gem, but it's also pretty much everywhere. If you go on YouTube, you can find it. It's on Vimeo Staff Picks. It's on Short of the Week. It's basically everywhere. So just Google it, Rebel.
Mm-hmm. And Omeleto is a channel in YouTube that allow that film?
Yes, Omeleto on YouTube is a channel that has Rebel, so you can go on their channel and watch it.
Okay,
for free.
Pier-Philippe Chevigny, thank you so much and for your story, first of all, and for your time with Correo TV. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. My pleasure.